This week on Dance of Joy, we talk about bilingual birds, Frankenstein's monster, and wacky weather in the Midwest. All that and more as we watch Season 5, Episode 23 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hi, cousin listener. Welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. My name is Imran. Joining me is my sister, cousin, co-host, sister, cousin, Sophia.
Sister.
Which one? Sister, cousin? It's sister. Cousin,
sister.
Well, everybody's a cousin here. I think our listener gets that by now.
But
how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm freezing. Listen, it's the end of April in Chicago, and it snowed yesterday. The weather is very cold.
Yeah.
Lousy smarch weather.
Lousy smarch weather.
But it's April.
Another line from that Simpsons that I love is, please don't touch Willie. Good advice. It's a sign of the thermostat. Anyways, yes, if you're not familiar with the Midwest or Chicago, sometimes it snows late in April.
Cold.
Sometimes it's 80 degrees one day, and then it's literally snowing the next day.
And hailing.
Yes, hailing and snowing.
Ice falling from the sky.
This happened last week, and it ties into some of the confusing environmental settings in this week's episode.
This weather has been happening for since at least 1990.
No. I remember in high school on my birthday, it was April 5th. I remember it snowed, and for some reason, I always remember. I'm like, oh my God, it's snowing. But then throughout my life, it has snowed in late April in Chicago many times.
Very appropriate, because even in 1990, when this episode, Season 5, Episode 23 of Perfect Strangers, titled Bye Bye Birdie, this episode aired in April 13th, 1990, and it features a lot of snow in Chicago.
It's snowing. In the last episode, I don't think it was winter, and now it's snowing, and in the next episode, it's probably not going to be.
And it makes total sense.
Winter, but it does. It's very consistent with Chicago weather. Bye Bye Birdie, the title. Of course, you may recognize that. That is named after the musical from 1960, Bye Bye Birdie. And then in 63, Dick Van Dyke and Anne Margaret made a movie. I love musicals. I've never seen Bye Bye Birdie. Have you seen Bye Bye Birdie?
I feel like I might have seen it once, but
it's famous for that song, Put on a Happy Face.
Okay.
Comes from Bye Bye Birdie, but I've never seen it. But we have lots of musical references in this show, which is great. If you were to open the TV guide, though, what is this episode about? It would have read, Balky is heartsick after his pet parrot flies the coop, and Larry doubts that even the Miposian runaway pet chant will bring him back. Ooh, we're going to get a chant. I like that.
This episode stars Balky and Larry, Bronson Pinchot, and Mark Lynn Baker. And we also have a brief appearance by Melanie Wilson playing Jennifer Lyons.
Slim cast. Just the core players. What was the bird's name?
And I don't know. They didn't list the bird in the cast. They should have credited
the bird.
There were actually probably at least two birds. Maybe one. Maybe
more.
It's one. Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe it was the same bird. Well, one of them was bilingual. You'll see.
Yes.
Anyways, Perfect Strangers streaming for free on Amazon Freevee. You can watch, binge along, play along with us as we round out Season 5. We're late. We're only one more episode left. Very exciting of Season 5.
And just once again, this episode aired April 13th, 1990. So we're a little past that in real time.
Almost real time. Almost 36. Was it 6 years? I can't do math.
Sure.
33. Sorry. 33.
Okay. Act 1. We start in the apartment, and we also know that it's a dark, stormy, kind of cold, windy day. And we see Larry's on the phone with some people asking about cleaning the chimney. We hear him say on the phone, "Is this Johan from Yumpin' Yimini's Chimney Sweeps?"
Oh, he goes, Yumpin' Yimini. Larry's called them because he can't use his fireplace. He needs his chimney swept.
Yes.
Meaning cleaned, unclogged. And he says to the guy, tomorrow's great. He gives him his name. And he gives out his address.
His address.
He says 711 Caldwell Avenue. And I don't remember if this is the same address they've given before. I couldn't remember. I feel like they said Caldwell.
So.
Does not exist, I don't think, in Chicago.
I don't think. Hold on, I'm just.
There is a Caldwell Avenue, but it's like way out west. It's like not in the city, right?
It's in the city.
It's in like the northwest edge of the city, but I can't remember what the other numbers they've given out for their apartment over the seasons. It's in our notes, but it's hard to find.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's where they live.
That's where they live now. 711 North Caldwell. I don't think buildings like the one they live in exist at that address right now.
But I always love when they give a little detail.
Yes.
I'm like, oh my God, the address.
At least it's a street that's familiar to us. Yes.
Yeah.
And anyway, he's on the phone and we get this opening joke. We hear him ask Johan, how much is this going to cost me? And then he pauses and then he goes, and how much without the top hat? And there's a big laugh from the audience.
Yeah, not the best opening joke. You don't understand this joke, do you?
I don't get it, but I got that it was a joke because then he says, you've heard that one before, huh?
Okay, they get that a lot.
Chimney sweeps wear top hats?
I feel like it makes me think of like Mary Poppins and British chimney sweeps and how they're proper and they wear top hats. I don't know. Something like that. Maybe if you Google like old timey chimney sweep, they wore like bowler hats or top hats.
They wore like those cabbie hats.
Yeah, they wore the cat. That's what I think. That's like your worker
top hat. Yeah. Oh, I guess they did wear top hats before.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, there's some Google images with top hats.
So it's just a
silly joke
about
old-timey
chimney. Do they even have chimney people? They still call them chimney sweeps? Do they come in and sing and dance and traipse around your roof?
Chim chiroo.
Jump through chalk pictures?
Anyway, we're not even at the premise of this show yet.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Focus, Javed, focus. So we know one thing, the chimney is not working and Larry's frustrated.
Clogged. Yes.
And he hangs up the phone and then Balky comes storming into the apartment, very excited, and he's got a large like gold bird cage with a red parrot inside. And he says, cousin, guess what I got?
And Larry just goes, a parrot. And he goes, a parrot. Because it is apparent that he's holding a parrot. Yes. So they go over, they sit by the coffee table. And Belky goes, funny story. He goes, you know when you see a parrot and something clicks? Does that happen?
As if it happens to everyone.
Is that a thing?
Of course, when you see a parrot and something clicks.
I met my soul parrot today. Well, that happened to him, he says. And then he goes, when the salesman saw I was cuckoo over this birdie, he gave me the birdie for free. So you're going to get a lot of bird puns.
Larry's not, give me the birdie for free.
And cuckoo over this birdie.
Yes.
A lot of bird puns.
Larry knows exactly what's going on. He's not impressed by the free bird at all because he says, did he give you the cage for free? Aha. And Balky says, of course not. Don't be ridiculous. Cousin, this is a top-of-the-line dual alloy hand-forged bird cage from Taipei. You don't get those for free. And Larry's just like, yep. And he asks how much it costs. And Balky says, $250 out the door. Which was a lot in 1990 money. Yeah.
It cost them $250. That's a lot.
But there's no time for Larry to express his disapproval because then we hear Balky say something very un-Balky-like. He says, cousin, I am totally stoked.
Totally stoked.
He's stoked for the two of them to have a birdie.
I love that because it's kind of the lingo of the late 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
Yes, that was the thing. People say, totally stoked.
And he's very excited for the two of them to care for this birdie. But Larry's like, wait a minute. We are not going to have a birdie. This is your bird. That means you'll feed it. You'll clean it. It's like a parent talking to a child.
Yeah.
And Balky's super excited. He's like, I'll teach it how to talk. And Larry's like, okay. Balky says that he's always wanted to have a pet that could talk to him. And in fact, on Meepos, I taught my hamster sign language. He was very good at it. Unfortunately, he had very little to say.
So that mental picture is hilarious. I just picture this little hamster doing sign language with Balky, but just sitting there and not saying anything. But
he's the hamster not doing sign language.
But he thinks he learned sign language.
He just doesn't have anything to say.
That image of Balky and then trying to teach a hamster sign language is hilarious in my head. But he has higher hopes for Yorgi. He's named him Yorgi.
Yorgi is the bird. Yeah. He named him after his favorite goat on Meepos, Yorgi.
Larry says, that's quite an honor. He goes, I would have thought you would have saved that for your firstborn. Kind of being like condescending a little bit. And then Balky's like, Carson, jump into the 20th century. We don't name our children after goats. We name them after sheep. It makes like a duh sound. That's a pretty funny joke. 20th century. It's so crazy. We're in the 21st century.
Yes,
this whole show happened last century. Yes. Anyways, now we transition to some time passing, and we get a shot of the outside, and suddenly it is now snowing
with
there's
lots of CGI.
But it's just like light snow right now, but there is snow painted on the building.
But not on the cars.
Yeah, so it's just like a basic, not on the car, superimposed snow. It's not crazy yet. There's nothing on the ground.
No, it's just a gentle snowfall.
Like we just talked about, in late April, it's snowing for no reason. It happens, and 2 weeks have passed.
We see the words 2 weeks later. So then we cut to the inside of the apartment, and once again, Balky is in what? His Spider-Man pajamas.
Yes, I love when he has his Spider-Man pajamas on.
We love it every time the Spider-Man pajamas
he's wearing like a robe over the Spider-Man, but the central part of it gets a lot of screen time.
And Yorgi's outside of the cage, sitting on top of the cage, and Balky has like a little bird treat in his hand, and he's sort of training Yorgi, and we just hear Balky say, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're blue and you don't know where to go, why don't you go where fashion sits? And then Yorgi goes, what? Putting on the Ritz.
And he gives him the treat. He goes, wonderful. He goes, are you sure you don't have show business in your blood? And then Yorgi goes, don't be ridiculous. Don't be ridiculous. It's so funny. Of course, it's just dubbed in, and they don't even bother to but it's a real bird, right? They're using this real red parrot.
Yeah.
And it's that's so funny when you hear the parrot talk, and he's going to try it again.
Apparently, Bronson Pinchot had canaries when he was a kid, so that's why he's so good with these birds.
Yeah, you see how
this episode.
He knows how to move them onto their finger, and he can think like a bird,
really
which is weird.
I
mean, the show has had they've had a dog. There was a cow. Now there's birds. But that whole putting on the Ritz thing reminded me of something, and I believe this is partly inspiration. In the movie, the hilarious 80s Mel Brooks movie, Young Frankenstein, you have to watch it. Gene Wilder, it's in black and white.
Yep.
Dr. Frankenstein and Gene Wilder and the monster perform a song on stage, and they perform Putting on the Ritz. And I'm just going to play the opening bit because it's hilarious when Frankenstein sings Putting on the Ritz.
Frankenstein's monster.
Sorry, Frankenstein's monster sings Putting on the Ritz. Here it is.
If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where fashion sits?
This makes me laugh every time. That's such a great movie. It's Frankenstein's monster. He just learned how to talk, and now he's singing. It's amazing.
And so is Yorgi the parrot. Basically we're in this scene where Balky is training Yorgi to sing this song. And then we get a little more context because we pan out and we see Larry coming out of his bedroom.
He's very grumpy looking.
He's grumpy. He's tired. Yes. He's in his night robe and his hair is all messed up. And we find out from him that it is, in fact, 2:00 in the morning. And he's very unhappy with all the noise that's happening. And he says, keep it down. I'm trying to sleep. And Balky apologizes for the noise, and he says, but that's what happens when birds of a feather party together. And then he laughs at his own joke thing. He means saying. Birds of a feather flock together
is the saying. This is hilarious. But Larry is not laughing and tells him, this just isn't working out. And Balky is shocked. He goes, well, what do you mean? And Larry explains, the first few days he was here, it was cute. The two of you watching TV together, the two of you playing board games together, Yorgi helping you with your homework. Is he still at night school?
Yeah, I guess so. But this is such a ridiculous idea.
Him with some math.
Yorgi helping Balky with homework.
And then he says, it isn't cute anymore. I haven't slept for the past 4 nights because of this stupid, noisy bird. He's just straight out insulting the bird in front of Yorgi.
And then Balky moves him away from the table, moves Larry away because he doesn't want Yorgi exposed to negative energy.
Well, you hear Yorgi go, like he gets mad when he calls him stupid bird.
And he tells Larry that he owes Yorgi an apology. And Larry's like, I'm not apologizing to a bird. And then Balky says, well, come to think of it, the last 2 weeks that since we've had Yorgi, you haven't once picked him up to play with him. I haven't seen you give him any quality time at all.
Larry has not been spending time with Yorgi.
With the bird.
Look, when you have a pet, you got to play with them. It's important for their development.
And Larry is like fairly annoyed right now. And he says, how could I be so insensitive? And he says he's going to take a couple days off from work next week so that he could spend some real bonding time with Yorgi. And he's being sarcastic, of course, but Balky says, I think that would go a long way with him.
He doesn't pick up on
and then
the sarcasm.
he gets straight to the point and says, I don't want to bond with a bird. I want to go to sleep. And then he says, now do something about Yorgi before I do.
Whoa. Is this a physical threat, Larry?
He's
what are you
threatening
do?
the bird?
Yeah, Larry, easy there. This could get out of control. Balky, of course, is disappointed because he says, I was hoping my two best friends in the world would hit it off. He goes, I know Yorgi's made an effort, but it takes two, cousin. He says, it takes two. So he goes, I'm just going to keep Yorgi in my bedroom so you can't hear him. Larry says, thanks. He says he's going to sleep. And as Larry is leaving, you hear Yorgi go, good night, Shorty.
Shorty. He calls him Shorty.
Larry just turns around like he's going to strangle his bird. He's like,
that's
okay.
That's it. And then he lunges toward the bird. And Balky stops him and he's like, no. Shorty was the name of the man at the pet store.
Good cover. And he goes, yeah, that's it.
And he's like, yeah, that's it. Which makes it clear to the audience that he's making that up.
That's pretty good cover story, though.
Yeah.
And Larry, I guess, buys it.
So there's some kind of unspoken beef between Larry and Yorgi.
They just didn't hit it off from the beginning. All right, so another transition outside exterior shot as time has passed. Now,
still snowy.
It's snowing worse. There's a blizzard. There's snow on the ground. It's a little bit heavier. And we cut to the inside. And you would think this is there's a fire in the apartment and they shouldn't be in there because it is filled with smoke. You would have thought the building was on fire.
From the fireplace.
The fireplace clogged. There's smoke coming out. Larry's on the phone. Where's the smoke detector?
Yes.
In any building, this is evacuation
what is happening?
situation.
Yes.
Everybody get out. Call the fire department. You can see that there's a fire in the fireplace. And there's you wouldn't be able to breathe. You would pass out from smoke inhalation. Yeah. Anyways, Larry's fine as he's fanning the smoke with a magazine on the phone with the Johan's Yumpin' Yiminy chimney service. He goes, yeah, hello? He goes, yeah, you were just out to clean my chimney and I tried to start a fire and the chimney's still clogged. He's like, can you send someone out right away? There's enough smoke in here for us to shoot a rock video.
And he hangs up, joke. And then Balky enters in the apartment through the front door, and he looks around and he goes, wow, there's enough smoke in here to shoot a rock video, which is exactly what Larry just said. But then Balky starts singing Madonna's Express Yourself and dances to the bedroom. So we hear him go, what you need is a big, strong
Song
hand,
alert.
which will take you to a higher ground.
Don't go for
and then he dances his way into his bedroom.
There is a Lady Gaga song. I can't remember what it is, but it's the same exact chord progression of Express Yourself. She stole it. Look it up. Just put Lady Gaga, Express Yourself, and the song title will come up. And then when you listen to it.
Born This Way.
Yes. Baby, I was born this way. Listen to Express Yourself and listen to Born This Way. Lady Gaga's just doing Madonna, man.
Somebody mashed them up and called it Born to Express Yourself This Way. It's the same song.
The minute I heard Born This Way, I was like, that's Express Yourself. Because I love 80s Madonna.
Yeah.
You can't not love 80s Madonna. Good song alert.
Okay. Balky loved 80s Madonna too, and 90s. And Larry tells Balky they're not shooting a rock video, that the chimney is still clogged. He tried to start a fire again. Balky had gone into his room at this point and he's come back out. Larry's in the kitchen making dinner and Balky's like, come back out. And he's looking around underneath the coffee table and corners. And he says, have you seen Yorgi? He's not in his cage. Uh-oh. And he's calling out, Yorgi. And he says, I must have left the cage open when I was giving him his herbal sponge bath.
Herbal sponge bath.
No,
hey, listen.
That is a pampered bird.
Listen, we take our dog and she gets oils and acupuncture on this vibrating pad.
Oh my gosh.
It's like this holistic vet. It's amazing.
How much do you pay for that?
I don't know. It does great for the dog. Listen,
okay.
You got to do the acupuncture. Anyways, they can't find Yorgi. Larry says he's got to be here someplace. as he reaches down, pulls out their dinner for the evening. What is it? It appears to be a whole roasted chicken. So he takes the pan out with the chicken, and Balky tells him, Yorgi's probably hiding from you. You don't like him, and he knows it.
Yes.
And Larry goes, he does. He goes, well, what do you think I'm going to do? Pop him in the microwave? As he puts the chicken on the counter, and Balky turns around and just
it's
goes.
It's like a small chicken. It's like
a very small
game hen. Yeah.
And then he just goes, and starts crying. Like, it's a little bigger than the bird was.
And Larry's like, no, Balky, no, this is dinner. And Balky's
help.
like, ah!
That just makes it
and he
worse.
goes, no, I mean, it's not Yorgi. It's not even a bird we know.
This isn't even a bird we know, he has to clarify.
It's a stranger bird. And so then
it's a hen.
They're still looking for Yorgi. They don't know. And Larry's like, I don't know. The doors are closed. He's got to be here somewhere. It's not like he flew out the window. And as he says that, both Balky and Larry both look at the window. And guess what?
The window is open. Oh, no. Larry opened the window to let the smoke out.
Yes.
And Balky crawls out on the coal fire escape. And it's really sad. He's just out there going, Yorgi,
Yorgi,
Yorgi.
And the scene fades out, and that's the end of Act 1.
Listener, you can join this conversation and our future conversations and meet other Perfect Strangers fans in our Facebook group. There is a link in the episode description, and I post a thread there ahead of every episode we record, so you can watch along and leave your comments, observations, memories, random tangent thoughts that we have often. Any of that we love. We'd love to hear from you and meet you. Check it out.
Check it out. Act 2. Some time has passed, maybe some hours, a few hours. Or
let me guess, it's still snowing.
Several hours. It's still snowing. We see Balky on the fire escape sitting like with his knees pulled up to his body, his arms around his knees. And he's like frozen in this position, and he's still going, Yorgi, but Yorgi, but his voice is weak.
And his lips are moving.
He's
so he's
frozen,
like,
basically, on the...
Yes.
Frozen in this huddled position on the fireplace.
Barely getting the word Yorgi out. So presumably he's been sitting out there for a long time.
Hours, yeah.
In the cold, and we see Larry come out of his bedroom, or the bathroom, and he's got a winter coat on, and he has a hairdryer in his hand with a cord, one of those deals you got to plug in. Do you still have to plug in hair dryers?
Yeah.
How does that work? They're not USB powered, Wi-Fi, no, Bluetooth, no. Okay, so he walks over to the window and plugs in the hair dryer, and he goes, Balky, you've been out there for hours. You must be freezing. You're coming in here before you freeze to death. Now we have some more hilarious physical comedy.
This is probably the best of the episode. Funny. I'm going to try to describe it. So Balky is frozen in this huddled position, his knees up to his chest, his arms position, right? Sitting up. You know the position with your arms around your knees.
Yeah. Little ball.
Yeah, and he's frozen in that ball shape. And Larry reaches out and grabs Balky, but he's moving in one piece because he's frozen. So he tips him onto his side and then like pulls him in through the window onto this like the top of this bookcase.
That's right next to the window.
Bookshelf.
Yeah, it's great.
And then he slides the bookshelf
very clever
over to the dining room table and then rolls Balky onto the dining room table, and then he slides the bookshelf back.
Yeah.
And Balky's like on his side now, fetal position on the dining room table. Then he like props him up.
He needs to pick him up and sit him
like
up on
an egg,
the table.
And he's wobbly like an egg.
That's great.
But he's just frozen. His face is frozen. His whole body's frozen. And he had plugged in the hairdryer already by the window, and Larry just starts talking. He apologizes to Balky. I'm sorry. And he puts up the hairdryer. He like starts blow drying all over Balky.
It's great. Yeah, he's thawing him out. He does his hands first, and you see one hand start to move, and the other hand, and then the legs slowly.
And he says he never would have opened the window if he knew Yorgi was out of his cage. And then he thaws out his legs, and he stretches out his legs. He thaws out his hands. Larry says, don't worry, I'm sure Yorgi has found some other parrot-loving family, and he'll be just fine in his new home. And then he sticks the hairdryer inside Balky's coat. He just like dumps it in there.
Pointing down at his crotch.
And then he turns around to close the window, because that's all Larry wants in this whole episode is just to close to get warm.
Yes. And then Balky, whose lips are still frozen, you hear him go, Larry's like, what? He turns and he smacks Balky and massages his face and tosses him out. And he goes, Balky, what is it? He goes, don't close the window.
Don't close the window. He wants to leave the window open so that Yorgi can come home and fly right in. And Larry now tries to talk some sense into Balky, and he's like, it's 10 degrees below zero outside. And Balky says, all the more reason to leave the window open. He'll want to come inside quickly. And he says he's going to sit there by the window. And so he gets up and sits in a chair next to the window. He's going to sit there until Yorgi comes home because he needs to welcome him home when he comes back.
Balky's dedicated.
And Larry just gently asks him, what if Yorgi doesn't come home? And Balky doesn't get it. He's like, why wouldn't he? All his stuff is here. I love that line. All his stuff is here. And besides, it's Friday night and he never misses stupid pet tricks on Letterman.
Oh, yes. That was Letterman. Stupid pet tricks on David Letterman's show was great. David Letterman no longer has a late night talk show, but he does have an amazing interview show on Netflix, right? It's very good.
No stupid pet tricks.
No stupid pet tricks on there, but he's in a different phase of his career. Anyways, we transition to the next morning, and we see Larry coming out of his bedroom. He's got a cap on and a robe on, and he heads for the kitchen, and he sees Balky still sitting by the window, but Balky has a pink blanket on and a hoodie. And not only that, you see there is frost on the bookshelf, on one side of the table, on the chairs. It's a great little effect. It's clearly that like Christmas flocking spray used to signify, and you see it's snowing outside, that there is a freeze in the apartment. It's that cold. The window's been open that long.
And he says, Balky, have you been up all night? And then Balky starts to talk. He says, yes. And he turns his head toward Larry to keep talking. And we see that the window side of his face is also frosted.
Yeah, it's got all frosted. The other side's fine.
And he says, and he's like shivering. He's like, no sign of Yorgi, but I did meet a couple of nice pigeons. They're going to ask around.
All right. He's networking. He's got the word out. That's great.
Larry's not happy. He says, it's freezing in here. So we know it's just frigid in the apartment. And Balky suggests that Larry eats his oatmeal to warm him up. And then we see Larry there's like this bowl of oatmeal with a spoon. And he lifts the spoon and like all the oatmeal is frozen in one shape, comes up with the spoon and he drops it and it makes a clinking noise.
Yeah.
Frozen clump of oatmeal.
Yeah, he can't eat the oatmeal. And he asks Balky, he's like, don't you think if Yorgi was going to come back, he'd be here by now? And Balky's like, I don't know, cousin. Single bird, big town. He's having a ball out there.
Yes.
And Larry is trying to help him understand the fact that sooner or later he's going to have to face the music and that Yorgi may be gone for good. And Balky's like, cousin, you can check your negativity at the door. He believes Yorgi is going to come back. And he goes, let me tell you this, I'm not going to rest until he does. And as he says that, he slumps over and passes out because he hasn't slept all night.
And he's frozen.
And Larry's like, Balky, and he is out. So Larry gets up and walks over there and picks him up. He gets him up.
Says he basically takes him to his bedroom because he needs to sleep. And he tells Balky that he will sit by the window and welcome Yorgi home. And Balky thanks him. And as he goes to his bedroom, he says, I just hope he hasn't hooked up with some crows and picked up bad habits. And then he does this like worried like hand gesture, rolling of the eyes.
He's out there smoking cigarettes with crows, Yorgi, just shooting dice, getting into trouble.
And Balky starts to shuffle toward his bedroom door. And as soon as he goes into the bedroom and closes his door, Larry goes straight to the window.
He's like, I'm
shutting this window. But it doesn't. He tries to close it. Doesn't move at all. Then Balky comes back out of his room and he tells Larry, oh, by the way, I nailed the window open so the wind wouldn't blow it shut.
Great.
Larry's like, oh, boy.
He's like, good idea.
And then Balky goes back to his room to sleep. And then there's a knock at the door.
Oh, who's at the door?
It's Jennifer.
Yeah.
Larry goes to open it. Jennifer's like wearing a coat. She's on her way out somewhere. In fact, she's on her way to the bakery and has come to ask if they need anything.
That's nice.
But she gets distracted because she notices that it's freezing in the apartment. And she says, what's going on? And Larry tells her that Yorgi flew away last night and Balky won't close the window until he comes back. And Jennifer doesn't believe it either. She's like, it's 10 below out there. And Larry's like, I know. By now, Yorgi is a birdsicle lying beak up somewhere. Oof. And then Jennifer feels bad for Balky and suggests that Larry get Balky another bird.
Oh, she has an idea. She's trying to help. Okay.
Larry doesn't get it at first. He's like, no, he wants Yorgi. He doesn't want another bird. And Jennifer suggests that Larry get a bird that looks just like Yorgi, and maybe Balky won't know the difference. And Larry thinks about it for a minute, but then he says, nah, it wouldn't work. Because as soon as Balky found out that the bird couldn't talk, he'd know it wasn't Yorgi.
So that's great because that's what you're thinking as an audience, right? They're like being smart about this. And you're like, oh, well, yeah. Oh, yeah. What do you do now?
Yeah. And for once, like Larry's being like the logical one.
Yes. And not going crazy.
But Jennifer out of nowhere says, well, that's easily explained. The trauma of being lost coupled with the intense cold caused temporary amnesia. It happens with tropical birds.
And Larry goes, it does? And she goes, well, you believed it, didn't you? It's all about delivery.
Oh,
See?
my
it's all
gosh,
about how you say it. And Larry goes, you are devious. I like that in a woman. So they're bonding over her.
So, yeah, her
trickiness.
devious plans. And then she tells Larry that her friend Jack owns a pet store, and she's happy to go down there and see if there's a bird that looks like Yorgi. And if there is, she'll buy it, and then Larry's troubles are over.
Great idea.
And it's such a good idea, but all Larry heard was her friend Jack. And he goes, Jack? And Jennifer's like, Larry, he's 79 years old. And Larry's like, how tall is he?
And Larry apologizes. He goes, I'm freezing and I'm not thinking straight. Just call me as soon as you get back. And Jennifer stops and goes, you're kind of cute when you're jealous. And she steps in and gives him a big kiss on the lips.
They're kissing, and then she pulls back and she says, don't worry about Jack. You're a much better kisser than he is.
And great reaction on Mark Lindbaker's face. At first, he's smiling like,
and
yeah,
then he's
I am.
like, oh.
And then he's like, what? Wait a minute. And he's
minute.
worried. I love it. He's so good with those facial expressions.
We cut to sometime later that day, and Larry is on the phone again, and we hear him go, you found a bird? Awesome. Great. Thank you, Jennifer. I'll be right up to get him. So Jennifer has found a bird that looks like Yorgi.
Jack came through.
And Larry's going to go get it and do something with it. But just as he hangs up the phone, Balky comes out of his room, still wrapped in a blanket, and he's annoyed. He's like, cousin, why aren't you at the window? And Larry just makes an excuse. He goes, I'm walking off a cramp. And then he starts limping and going, ow, ow, ow. It's gone.
He goes, oh, there, it's gone. And Balky asks if there's any sign of Yorgi yet, and Larry goes, not yet, but I got a feeling something's gonna pop real soon. And Balky now has some facts about missing birds and the law, apparently. He goes, cousin,
not the law, the Meposian custom.
Oh, the Meposian law. He goes, the mandatory 29-hour waiting period is up. Yorgi is officially a missing pet, and that means there's only one thing to be done. Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. He says we have to go for broke.
He goes back into his room. He says we have to pull out all the stops, and he comes out with Yorgi's cage that's on a stand now. And he puts it in the living room.
He says we have to take the bull by the corns. He means horns.
Yes.
And he says it's time for the vingy vingy bingy.
And Larry goes, vingy vingy bingy.
The vingy vingy bingy.
Okay, we have another bingy thing happening here, but now he's added some vingy bingies to it. Last episode was just everything was bingy bingy.
And what is the vingy vingy bingy? Well, of course, it is the Meposian chant for runaway pets. He said, I didn't want to use it earlier. It's quite potent. We could attract every runaway dog and cat in the neighborhood.
Oh, boy, that's powerful. Powerful chant.
And Larry is trying to get out the door, right, to get to Jennifer's, to get this replacement bird. So he just goes, well, I think that's an excellent idea. And Balky is ready to convince him. He's like, now don't you? And he goes, wait, what? You do? And Larry's like, yeah, I don't usually go for this chant stuff, but I have a feeling this one's going to work. I think it's a good chance that this chant will bring back your bird. And Balky's like delighted that he hasn't objected to this like he usually does. And he says, great, you want to join me? You can do the backup. I'll teach you the steps. And Larry's like, yeah, I'd love to, but I got to run. And Balky says, where are you going? And Larry's like, they're salting 7th Street. And you know how I love to watch that. Wait, 7th Street by Caldwell?
7th Street? There's a 7th Street.
We don't have numbered streets.
In the south side.
Well, we do in the south, yeah.
He wants to watch them salt the street. He's just trying to get out the door so he can get the bird. He goes, come on, Balky. You're cutting off your chant time.
5, 6, 7, 8.
And then Balky does this chant. Now, I'm going to play the clip of the chant because it's really funny.
Yeah.
And then, listener, you let us know. You've been following along with us. Does it sound like a chant they've had before?
Parts of it. Do parts of it sound familiar?
It is funny, and he does some funny motions as he does this chant and some hip thrusting, and you hear the audience go wild. But when there's a Balky chant, we have to just play it. Here it is. Hey, you gotta hey. But it's a fun chant. He's hopping around in front of the sofa, and then he's on his knees behind the sofa.
And the part that was familiar to me when I heard it is what we've heard before was the hoo ha ha hoo ha ha hoo. We've heard that before.
Yes.
That was part of the Meposian Litany of Truth.
Yes, the Meposian
Season
Litany
5,
of
Episode 2, Liability. Yes, where they're trying to bilk an insurance company.
That's right. The chant. So look, it's part of the chant. You change the letters. It's interchangeable. I don't know. Anyways, he has done the vingy, vingy, bingy.
Vingy, vingy, bingy.
And we're going to see if it works as Larry has watched him do this chant with his eyes bugged out and what is happening?
What? And he leaves.
So then we cut to outside on the fire escape.
And Larry is climbing down from above from Jennifer and Marianne's apartment.
They live right above him, of course.
And he's got a cage with another red parrot inside. And he gets to the landing of their own fireplace and puts the cage on the sill or whatever. And we just hear him go, okay, here we go. Good birdie, good birdie.
Again, real bird. And now Mark Baker is handling this bird.
And he opens the cage door and he puts his arm out. He's like, here we go. Come on. Come here. Come here.
It's a well-trained bird,
and
too.
the bird goes on his arm and then he turns slowly to the window. He wants the bird to fly in the window.
Fly into Balky. Fly into Balky.
Find the Balky. Find the Balky. And the bird takes flight but doesn't go through the window.
It just
goes
takes off.
away.
Of course it's going to take off. And Larry's like, oh, no. And then you kind of watch Larry watch the bird fly around in front of him. And he's like, okay, come back. And eventually the bird does return on the railing. And he's trying to grab the bird. And the bird is backing away on the railing and squawking at him and trying to bite him. And he's like, oh.
Come here. Come on. Come here, Birdie. And then he just lunges and grabs the bird.
When they cut to him grabbing a prop bird, right?
Yes, he's not a real bird anymore.
And he threatens the bird again. He goes, come to Larry before I wring your little birdie neck.
Yeah.
So then he grabs the prop bird, throws it in. And the next thing we see is the shot inside and the bird flying onto Balky's head.
And Balky goes, Yorgi, you came back. And he gives the bird a treat. Then Larry outside is just going, yes, yes. And he looks up and this big clump, a bunch of snow falls on his face.
Right on his face, of course. Just like when the ceiling falls on his face when he moved out of the up and clearly just fake snow. Not even trying to be real snow. Just little pieces of plastic.
Yeah.
But Balky is very happy that Yorgi's back and he puts him back in the cage. He goes, you had me worried sick. He goes, get in there, get in your cage. He goes, it's going to be a long time before I open this cage again. That's a privilege you're going to have to earn. I hope someday you have a bird of your own, so you'll know what you put me through. Just everything a parent would say when a kid runs away. And he goes, okay, we're done. We say no more about it. The important thing's you're okay. And just then Larry enters, and Balky's
from the front door. Larry goes back around.
Up, runs downstairs. He's kind of out of breath. He's got snow on him, and he's like, cousin Yorgi came back.
And
Larry goes, oh my Lord.
It's a miracle. And then he plays along, but kind of overdoes it. He says, well, I wouldn't believe it if I wasn't seeing it with my own eyes. Well, just let me look at the two of you together again. Well, I just want to savor this moment. great, okay, let's close the window and get this place warmed up. And he goes
Barely
to get a hammer
savoring
and
the
pull the
moment.
nails
Yes.
out of the window.
Which he does.
That's all he wants
Yeah.
is to close the window.
Because it's cold. So he does free the window and close it.
And then we close up back to the other side of the apartment with Balky and Yorgi. And Balky's talking to the bird, and he says, the first words I want to hear out of your mouth are, I'm sorry. Come on, we all make mistakes. And the bird says nothing. And Larry's closing the window in the background, and he comes back. He comes over to where Balky is. And Balky just tells Larry something's wrong because he's not talking. And Larry's ready for this. He says, well, that's easily explained. The trauma of being lost coupled with the intense cold caused temporary amnesia. Happens in tropical birds. And Balky goes, it does? And Larry says, oh, sure. Ask Jennifer.
Ask Jennifer.
And he says, I'm sure with some time and loving care, you can reteach him.
And Balky just isn't. He goes, cousin, I don't think this is Yorgi. And now Larry's stammering. He goes, well, of course it's Yorgi. What other bird would be zany enough to fly around in weather like this? He goes, you crazy bird, you.
But Balky has more instincts. He says, no, his body language is different, and he seems to be carrying more weight in his face.
His face is fatter.
It's a fat-faced bird.
Balky does his body language. And Larry just goes, well, he's probably just retaining water.
Oh, my gosh. And then, that almost would have worked, but then we hear the bird go, buenos dias.
That's so funny.
And then he goes, mi casa es su casa.
And then Balky's just staring at Larry like, what did you do? And Larry goes, oh, did I tell you, Balky? Oh, he always spoke Spanish. He just never did while you were around. And then Larry's looking at his face and just goes, hola, ¿cómo usted? He's trying to talk to the bird.
Usted?
And Balky's still giving him the look. And Larry's like, you're not buying any of this, are you?
I just want to know why the bird spoke Spanish with like the heaviest gringo accent.
Well, it was either
Buenos dias.
Buenos
Mi
dias.
casa es su casa.
It was either a bird of maybe like in a Spanish class at a school, or the previous owner thought it would be funny to teach him. It's not a bird that
Spanish with an American accent.
Yes,
yeah.
It's not a bird that had a Spanish family. That's for sure.
Yeah,
but it's just so hilarious when he starts talking. The bird is speaking Spanish.
And then he just looks at Balky and says, you're not buying any of this, are you? And then Balky says, cousin, who is this stranger in Yorgi's cage?
This is an outrage.
And Larry, this is like unusual for our plots, but Larry just comes out and says, all right, it's not Yorgi, but he was with Yorgi when he died. And Balky's like, cousin. He's like, okay.
It's like a dark joke now. It's kind of funny. He's like, okay.
That is really funny, yeah.
But he was with Yorgi when he died.
And then he's like, okay. And then he tells him the real truth. He said he asked Jennifer to go to a pet store and buy a bird that looked like Yorgi. And then he came down the fire escape and threw him through the window. And he said, I should have realized you'd know the difference.
Balky goes, thanks for trying so hard. And he marches over, tours the window, and opens it up. He goes, I'm waiting for Yorgi. He takes a seat next to the window again. And this time Larry takes a seat next to him, tries to talk some sense to him. He says, Balky, listen to me. Yorgi is not coming back. Now, I'm not saying that anything bad has happened to him. In fact, he might be with a very nice family someplace. But wherever he is not coming back here. Never, as in forever. He's history. He's dead, he says. So he just ends up with he's dead. And when he says he's dead, suddenly Yorgi flies through the window and lands on Larry's head.
And says, don't be ridiculous. Don't be ridiculous.
Don't be ridiculous. Perfect on cue. And Balky's like, Yorgi, you came back. And he gets him off Larry's head. Balky has him. Oh, my God. Yorgi actually came back.
And he gives him a treat.
That escalation of he's not coming back here, never, as in forever.
Dead.
He's dead. Like,
yes.
Okay,
and so Balky takes Yorgi, the real Yorgi, from Larry's head, and he says, you must be hungry, and he gives him a treat, and he says, cousin, I told you he'd come back. And Larry is truly shocked. He says, I really didn't think there was a chance we'd ever see Yorgi again. And Balky explains that reciting the Vingy Vingy Bingy works every time.
Bingy Bingy.
And Larry is still not buying it. He's still disparaging Balky's culture because he says, I'm just glad your bird came back. And if you want to believe the chant had something to do with it, well, that's just fine. But those of us in the civilized world know that this was just a coincidence.
What a line about like faith
5 seasons
and
he still doesn't respect
yes,
the Myposian rituals.
What he wants to believe.
How many binds has he gotten out of because of Myposian rituals?
And I think also he's wrong because what happens next?
Right. So he's saying those of us in the civilized world know this was just a coincidence. Then we just hear all this barking and meowing from the street outside the window, like a lot. And Larry gets up to look out the window and he goes, "Oh my Lord. There must be hundreds of cats and dogs out there."
No.
And Balky just smirks and he says, "Really, cousin? Well, that's quite a coincidence, wouldn't you say?" And then we roll credits.
Listener, before we get into some questions we have about this episode, I want you to know you can get some Dance of Joy swag, some merch at our TeePublic shop. Visit danceofjoypod.com/shop to get your very own Dance of Joy.
Dance of Joy.
Get your own Bingy Bingy at the Bingy Bingy. T-shirts, hoodies, baseball shirts, coffee mugs, tote bags. All with the Dance of Joy logo. I believe somebody bought a cell phone case recently.
Ooh.
I saw that come in on the email.
If that's you, listener, send us a picture.
Yes, take a picture with it.
Put it on Instagram, tag us, whatever, or send it to us.
Join the Facebook group.
Somehow, put it in there. We'd love to see your Dance of Joy phone case.
And you're helping us advertise the podcast. We appreciate it.
Yes.
Okay, so questions. First of all,
what happened to the Spanish-speaking bird?
Did he keep both of the birds? Does he have two birds now? Well, I would keep him. Now Yorgi has a buddy, and maybe he'll learn another. He'll be bilingual.
Jorge.
Yes. Jorge and Yorgi. Oh my God, it's perfect. It writes itself. Just keep both of the birds. Hopefully they get along. Other questions? I think that was my only question.
Well, yeah, I kind of wanted a little more backstory about why he wants this bird, why he's so crazy about this bird. I don't know. There was some good physical comedy.
The physical comedy bit was good. It's kind of a straightforward episode, but it's very simple and to the point. And we
bird flies out the window. It is, in fact, such a straightforward episode that
they must have done this before.
Pretty much very similar to an episode of Laverne and Shirley that was called One Flew Over Milwaukee. And in that story, Shirley's pet canary, Dwayne, flies out the window and Shirley keeps vigil beneath it, waiting for him to return. And if that sounds too similar, that's because that episode was written by Perfect Strangers producers Michael Warren and William Bickley. So this is what they were doing in the 90s and 80s, just like taking a plot from an old show and putting it in a new show.
25 episodes a season. You got to come up with stuff. They already burned the Rashomon bit last week.
Yeah.
We'll just recycle. I predict two things moving forward. Next episode, it won't be snowing. And we'll probably never see either of these birds ever again, even though this is now his pet. Maybe it's just in his bedroom, but I doubt we'll be seeing the bird anymore.
Or Jorge, the Spanish-speaking bird.
Yes, or either of the birds. What happened to the birds? Did they get their money back?
How do you say "don't be ridiculous" in Spanish?
Don't be ridiculous. But I mean, funny episode, fun, nice, simple, straightforward. Tight, gets through it real quick.
No seas ridícula. Ridículo. No seas ridículo.
No seas ridículo. No seas ridículo. That's the Google Translate version of Don't Be Ridiculous in Spanish.
Okay. What did our listeners think? Well, listener John Adama always comes in with the good feedback. Cousin John writes, to be honest, it seems like Balky is the issue here, not the bird.
Balky was freaking out. The bird was fine. He's like, I'll be back.
Cousin John also writes, I bought a house with a real fireplace for the first time in September. Congratulations. I also have had a rock video environment at home.
You need that chimney sweat. We have a fireplace here. It's nice, but you got to make sure the flue is open. There's a whole bunch of crazy things. And like, this is a live fire. It's sometimes it makes me nervous, but it's nice when it's crackling on a cold day.
Cousin John also appreciated the physical comedy. He writes, fantastic work by both guys on the Frozen Balky bit. And they did a great job of making the apartment look frigid. That's true. It did look cold. Very cold. He also writes, it's sweet that Larry is trying to do something nice for Balky, even if he hates the bird. I disagree with this comment. Sorry, Cousin John, because I didn't read it as Larry trying to do something nice for Balky. Larry just wanted to get the window closed. Wanted to be able to close the window. So that was his whole motivation about bringing.
He was annoyed by the bird from the beginning, but it was cold.
But he's not trying to do something nice for Balky. His whole motivation with the replacement bird
close the window.
is so that Balky would think it was Yorgi, so he could close the window.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's up for debate. Was he trying to do something nice or was he being Larry selfish?
A
And
little bit of both.
Cousin John also writes, I'm sure this is the first of many episodes focused on our new beloved and feathered cast member.
Womp,
womp.
We need like a sarcasm tag when you type things because I'm pretty sure that's sarcasm.
Yes. And then we have our Cousin John Adama wrap up. He writes, I normally don't like animal episodes in sitcoms. They're either super sad or fill a bunch of time with animal tricks. I was happily surprised to see this episode go in a completely different direction. You get a Maposian dance, Larry scheming to help Balky or help himself, and a well-done physical bit. Even Jennifer is helpful. I'm happy to give this an A- since the wordplay suffered just a bit.
High marks from John Adama. I mean, it's got a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
He's got a point. Could use a little more wordplay. Anyways, don't be ridiculous said a bunch of times.
5 times, and 4 of them were by Yorgi.
Don't be ridiculous.
Of course I have. Don't be ridiculous.
No seas ridículo. No seas ridículo. And in Spanish by us.
They should
7
have
times.
put that in Spanish.
Oh my gosh, that'd be hilarious.
Funny would that
It would
have
have just been so random if that Spanish bird said that. Oh my God. And then we have no Dimitri appearance. I would have loved to see Dimitri get jealous. Maybe and have a little bird cage with a little balky or something.
Yeah.
Or something. Or his own bird.
Balky. Yeah.
Or he's trying to dress like a bird so Balky will pay
Or
attention to him.
maybe Dimitri could be inside a cage.
Oh, yes. He could be in the cage. He could have ended up in the cage with Yorgi and they would have been friends. You could have fit Dimitri in something.
Where is the Dimitri intern? Why weren't they more consistent with the Dimitri?
I mean, he had a full on-screen appearance a couple episodes ago, so they're probably like, okay, we don't need any more for a bit.
Okay, so now we're at PS Today or Perfect Strangers Today. This is the segment in our podcast where we discuss, can we make this story again today, or are there limiting factors, anachronisms and stuff like that would make it difficult?
Largely, I feel like everything holds up.
A bird can still fly out the window.
Birds still fly out the window. Chimneys still get clogged.
But now, you know what people would say now? Birds aren't real.
They're dinosaurs? What?
They're drones.
Okay.
They're robots.
Is that the thing?
You don't know the whole conspiracy thing about birds aren't real?
Dinosaurs. That's as far
it was
as I
like
got.
this fake.
Birds aren't real.
Some kids started this like whole community and hashtag called "Birds Aren't Real," and it was to mess with flat earthers and Trumpers. But then it grew into its own thing, and it kind of backfired. And then
where people actually believe birds aren't real.
You can go and research how that joke got out of hand.
Thank you, Internet. Thanks
birds
for that
aren't
one.
real, and they were like this whole community of people that I don't know if, as a joke or for real believe that birds are all like robots and drones and government conspiracy.
So maybe you redo this, and one of them is like hashtag birds aren't real, dude.
Yeah,
and he tries to tell that's not a real thing,
birds
and I don't want that
real.
in my house because it's the government or something.
Maybe Larry's like, get that out of my house.
It still snows. It still snows in April in Chicago.
Right. That's
like
right.
you could do this whole thing.
It still gets frigid inside an apartment if you leave the windows open.
The weird thing is like this huge apartment building has chimneys in every apartment. How does that work? Where's the? I don't know.
Yeah,
That's kind of odd. Like,
that's weird.
You see chimneys in single family houses. There were chimneys in apartment buildings. Fireplaces. No, yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought they were always decorative.
Yeah.
Like the 2 flat we grew up in had a fireplace, but I think it was blocked off.
I don't get the mechanics
maybe at
of
one
this
point the older buildings did have a chimney that
fireplace
went
in an apartment building.
all the big apartment buildings. But I would give this a high PS Today score because you could do
it. There was nothing. You would still go get like a lookalike bird.
Yeah, you'd still go. You can buy a bird, like all of it. It's very timeless.
You'd probably still get swindled by a birdcage salesman.
Oh, absolutely. Bird's free.
Yeah. Yeah, everything's pretty accurate. Yeah. You could do this. High score for PS.
I don't see anything that would need to change. All right, that's it for this week, listener. Join us next week. Not only is it the season 5 finale, we are approaching our 100th episode.
No, next week will be our 99th.
Yeah, and then our season break special, which will do something fun. That'll be our 100th episode of doing the show, which is crazy. That's a milestone. 100 episodes of Perfect Strangers. Who would have thought? Anyways, next week, Larry and Balky meet the host of a popular children's television show. Is it Barney? No. Is it Mr. Rogers?
Bozo the Clown?
Is it Bozo the Clown? If they're in Chicago, that would be your Chicago
we'll find
reference.
out.
Barney, I don't think was around yet. In the meantime, you can support the show in a number of ways that I've already mentioned. You can buy some merch. You can also buy us a virtual coffee. It's like a little virtual tip jar. Visit our website, danceofjoypod.com. There's a little buy me a coffee button there. And you can show your support. You can buy us multiple coffees. All proceeds help to keep the show going as we power through the next few seasons to get to all 8 seasons of Perfect Strangers.
And while you're over there at danceofjoypod.com, you can also check out all the links to where you can listen to this podcast, where you can subscribe to it, like it, rate it, review it, all that fun stuff. You can also press a button right there on the main page and send us a voice note. Tell us about your pet parrot and what you've taught it to say. Does it speak Spanish? You can also, if you don't like the sound of your voice, that's totally fine. You can send us an email at danceofjoypod@gmail.com. Or you can check us out on any of our social media accounts. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please drop in, say hi, post a picture of your Dance of Joy swag, your merch, your phone case, and we would love to see it. But Imran, what is the most important thing our listeners should do?
Always leash your bird. That way, if you leave the window open and it flies out, you just pull it back in. You know what I'm saying?
That's very true.
But more importantly, share this show, listener. Shout out to Nicole Stoner, who's been retweeting and sharing every episode. I love that.
Thank you so much, Nicole
Keep it up.
Stoner.
Be like Nicole Stoner. Share the show. Put it out in the world. We'd appreciate it. Thanks for listening to Dance of Joy podcast.
And now we are so happy.
Now we are so happy we do the dance of joy.
Hey, 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 hey.